I'm the 2023 World's Strongest Man. My PB deadlift is 1,047 pounds, and today I'm gonna break my raw deadlift PR. Now, I keep it pretty simple in terms of my supplementation. We're gonna go with pre-workout iPrep today. This is a lower stim version of Altered State, the other pre-workout that I love. But this one has the creatine in it. I don't need a huge amount of energy and itching. I need that creatine, I need that energy, and I need that mental focus. So that's how we're gonna start. I find lower caffeine when I'm lifting really heavy helps me because it doesn't cause the same spike in blood pressure that other pre-workouts might. I mean, that doesn't feel like my head's gonna pop off. So it does depend on the day what pre-workout I'm going to take. And then I'll have a couple of my ketones and I'll have some of these at the gym as well. These are a bit of a punish to get down. Oh, it's like taking a shot. More on ketones later. All right, got my LHBK bottle. That's in the description. Got a new soft belt. Lots more on this coming soon. Let's head to the gym. All right, so I'm gonna take you through my whole deadlift PR routine, starting with warm-up, albeit brief, into warm-up sets, the cues that I'm gonna use for today, and to that top set, 900 pounds, 2x2. Wish me luck. So for me, first things I'm gonna get warm is my core in a bit of anti-rotation. I've had some difficulty rotating to the left. For each of these, it's gonna be an intensity somewhere around 5 out of 10, and only a couple of sets because we're gonna get so much work and volume in just loading plates and moving plates and warm-up sets that you don't actually need to do all that much when it comes to specific warm-ups, unless you're feeling any sort of pain, discomfort, you've had an injury, which is mostly all I'm doing now. Working on that rotation, or anti-rotation, I should say. Oh, last one, just light movement, get the core going in a little bit of anti-extension, and then we should be good to go. Now, the only core movement that I don't warm up is anti-flexion, because we're gonna be warming that up through all of my deadlift warm-up sets, which you will see in a minute. The one really important thing about warming up is that any sort of pain signal from your brain is gonna be inhibitory for power. So even if you say, my knees are fine, deadlifting doesn't hurt my knees too bad, if you even have that like 5% limitation or signal of pain, it's gonna start shutting down your muscles. And not only will you be able to lift less, but you're also likely to shift some effort from the muscles that are sore or the joint that is sore onto other joints, which is naturally gonna cause issues. In this case, deadlift will shift pain from your knees, and it's possible that you over-rely on your back, and that causes a bit of pain. Some more ketones.
What is that?
Ketones. They're, it's what's used for energy, and it's actually 80% of your brain's fuel when you're at rest. So there's a huge psychological component. It's used actually for people with dementia and to prevent dementia, to have that plentiful source of nutrients in the brain. It also increases blood flow in the brain to help with cognitive function. Now, I always talk about sympathetic training when it comes to lifting in the sympathetic nervous system. That really is your brain communicating to your body. If you can keep that fresher, your workouts can go a little bit longer and you can have that higher output for longer. They actually started doing something with the US military, and it's getting rolled out now. Huge program with Ketone-IQ, where they send it over with the military because it's a great source of energy. It's a great source of mental focus, mental clarity, and really easy to transport and take. I mean, this bottle is so small. So they're actually starting to send pallets over with soldiers to use this for fuel on the battlefield. So a lot of great benefits to them, but I've started taking them, and they're tough to drink, but they are really, really useful personally for me. The one other cool thing about ketones is improved recovery. So they took people, and I'll provide a link to the research down below, you guys know that once I see something that could give me an edge, I love getting stuck into it. In an overtrained state, or people overreaching for a short period of time, those who took ketones had a 15% higher power output over the course of this 3-week overtraining overtraining period, as opposed to the control group, which actually went backwards. So the ketones helped them to continue push past an overtraining. It's not a good recommendation, but let's say you're peaking for a show, which I am right now. Well, why not take something that can help you push too hard for a little bit longer, push your recovery down the track and stay safe in the meantime? It's sort of just a no-brainer. I actually like this product so much that I've researched them and started working with them properly. If you use the link below, you can save 30% off and get 6 free bottles of Ketone-IQ to get started, and you could feel as good as I feel. Honestly, this feels like I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but I'm pretty sure you will be too. Deadlift bar. We keep the deadlift bar hidden away so that people don't squat with it. A video on the different types of bars would probably be useful for a lot of people, because the differences aren't as extreme visually as you would hope. Like, this is a very good bar. If you look at the end, it'll tell you, by the way, this is a key actually to find out if you're using a good bar. On the end of a good bar, it'll tell you who makes it and what it is. Rogue Power Bar, it'd be an Ohio bar, 45 pounds, it says all of that on there. And then if you go to this bar, this is just a normal gym bar, and it just says first place 20 kilos. You can learn pretty quickly what bar is gonna get the job done and what's not. And the consequences, if you're squatting heavy on a standard gym bar, you'll get like real rocky, and if you deadlift heavy on it, and you're probably gonna bend it. But then the deadlift bar, this is a Rogue one as well. You can see, literally says deadlift on it, 20 kilos. That's when you know, definitely not a bar to be squatting with at any weight. I very much like to save myself for top sets. This stuff is mostly a formality, so that was 70 kilos. We'll go 70, 120, 170, 220, 270, 320, and only then will I put on a belt. This is my soft belt, my hard belt, and really start focusing a bit more. To me, this is more general preparedness, feel out the movement, see how everything's feeling for the day. It's been a little while since we've had a couple of friends come to visit us. Do you know who they are? These little piggies. I've been quite good on my sock upkeep with my recent success, but ever since losing World's Strongest Man, times are tough. Can't buy new socks anymore. So if you'd like to buy new socks, and you want my baby to eat, merch link is in the description and in the YouTube shop below. Go ahead and check that out and help the cause.
Mitch, question for you. So, what exactly are ketones?
It's a product, it's made by your body naturally. Obviously, like I ingested them today, but you know when you go into ketosis, like you have no sugar, so your body has to use ketones? Well, ketosis is just saying that you're using fat for your energy because you don't have the carbohydrates. So fat has to go to your liver takes the fat, creates ketones. Ketones then enter the citric acid cycle, and then they're used for energy. So it's a step along the process of turning fat into energy. And like I said, it's the only way other than glucose that your brain gets energy, and 80%, up to 80% of your energy in your brain, even in normal states when you're not in ketosis, is used for your brain. So ketones, it's a really normal thing in your body. They happen when you're fasted, they happen overnight, and it just depends on the levels. So like, personally for me, I'll use dietary ketones, then my body can use the ketones, and now carbohydrates are spared. And at rest, you can't turn ketones into energy really quickly, so it's not gonna transfer any use of energy when I'm actually lifting, but it's gonna use that energy when I'm resting so I actually save carbohydrates for when I'm actually training, because it's quite an arduous process for our body to turn fats into ketones and then ketones into energy. So it's a slow burning fuel source, in my case, saving energy for the things that actually matter. That was my best rep yet. That felt good. So, biggest thing that I'm thinking about today is making sure that the back of my shoulder is straight on top of the bar. And for me, my hips are gonna sit slightly higher. I notice that when I get to heavy weights, if I try to sit down too far, the bar tends to get away, and at my knee, I straighten my knees early, and I'm sort of hung out like this, where my hands are a couple of inches off my knees, and then that's when I have to start hitching it. So I'm trying to be smoother by keeping my hips higher, and seeing how that pays off. Things have been going really well that way, and I don't feel an over-reliance on my posterior chain when I do that. So we'll see. We're gonna hit 320 now, and personally, I don't really feel a huge difference technique-wise until I'm at 370 kilos and beyond. Nice and smooth. Ooh, smooth, smooth. Love it.
Okay, Mitch, what exactly is in the ketones?
Basically just that. I mean, it depends who you go with, I guess, but you drink those ones, you know they're not trying to put extra stuff in it to make it taste good. I think important, like caffeine-wise and sugar-wise, those two things I'm big on with training that people try to use as performance aids. But if you're training for longer than an hour, sugar's gonna peak and drop. Caffeine's gonna peak and drop. So just ketones, no sugar, no caffeine, no extra stuff in it at all. Which is why it's actually pretty useful for anyone from a mental clarity, from a performance perspective. It's, yeah, it's pretty simple. This will be 411 kilos, a little over 900 pounds. And it's a PB raw for me. I've pulled more on the elephant bar. I've pulled more in a suit, but in terms of raw and calibrated plates, mostly, obviously I just threw that one on. It's definitely a PB. And honestly, people are talking about big weights at Shaw Classic, but if you look at elephant bar numbers, and deadlift bar is harder than the elephant bar, I wouldn't be surprised if this type of weight was above the middle of the pack. If you think the Arnold's the top 10 in the world usually, the middle of the pack there was about 410, I want to say. We'll put the results right here somewhere, right here. But I think like 430 is probably a really competitive number for top 3. I think a lot of people are talking about Thor could pull 505. That would be the greatest strength feat of all time if he did it. If you think 1,000 on the elephant bar looked good, granted, but this is harder than the elephant bar, and 50 pounds is not nothing. So if it happened, I'd be hugely impressed. I also don't think there's gonna be a purpose, because it's gonna be Thor and everyone else is gonna be a little step below that. But to me, it's me, Bobby, Thompson, Matt Ragg battling for those 2, 3, 4 spots, and those could be valuable points when it comes to the end of it. So this is gonna be a PB single for me, full stop, but I'm gonna attempt it for 2, and I'm gonna attempt it for 2 with a dead stop and a re-brace in between reps. I use this trick on deadlift for reps that you should take for yourself. We're always better at bracing when we're standing tall. And so if you can lift a weight and you're doing it for reps and you can breathe and brace at the top, it is way easier than if you go down and reset. If you have a competition for reps or training for reps, There's no harm in you bracing and re-bracing at the top every time, unless you're preparing specifically for a 1 rep max. So I'm gonna make things a little bit harder on myself. You could make this slightly easier by breathing and bracing at the top. Steal that and see if it works for you. Sometimes the clips just aren't strong enough. Like with the deadlift bar, it bows and puts outward pressure on the clips, but I was through the hardest bits. By all intents and purposes, I completed that lift. But we're gonna double clip it, and it's 2x2 today. So we'll give it one more crack. Usually something like that, like heavy double deadlift, I'd be done. Like I'd struggle to finish the rest of my training session, and I still feel pretty much fine, which ketones, it's gonna take about half an hour, 40 minutes to get them into your bloodstream. And when it comes to the mental side, the mental focus, the mental clarity, I think it's playing a really big role. Of course, I can't be definitive, but they seem to be really helping me through my training sessions, and I can only imagine how useful they're gonna be in competition when we go event after event after event after event. Ooh. Woohoo! 4 reps today at 900. That is massive for me. That's huge. And it felt pretty strong, not too much hitching, pretty smooth. That is a massive win for me, a massive PB. And based on how I'm peaking, that shouldn't be anywhere near where my strength is in 2 months' time. That is encouraging. I was just saying, right there in rep number 2, off the floor, I felt like I had about 80% power. And Ian was just saying that it looked like the top was the hard part, not the bottom. Because when you're fatigued, off the floor, you're gonna compromise your technique. You're gonna round your back a little bit more. You're gonna sit a little bit lower, push your knees forward to get more drive out of the ground. But all of that is at the expense of the lockout. So off the ground looks fine, but then you have to pay more down the track. Now, if you want to cure your deadlift, hit new PBs, link to the programs down in the description. When I pulled 475, I wrote out that whole program. It's a full body program that you could do in a commercial gym. Go ahead, pick that up now and see if you can't hit a new PB as well. Ready, set, let's go. You tell me, are we resetting or are we breathing at the top?
Resetting.
You. Oh. Oh, I hate that so much, but it's done. Genuinely, 100% honesty, I could not do that much volume at that intensity without ketones, 100%. We're going straight into accessories. This is my second favorite accessory for deadlifts after snatch grip deadlifts. We're gonna get in some Pendlay rows. I'll tell you a few details to make this a deadlift accessory and not just a normal back exercise. Okay, tips on Pendlay rows. Now, what a lot of people get wrong here is think that you should adopt a deadlift position and try to row from here. That's not the case. In the first half of a deadlift, you should keep your torso angle the same. So you should rise just like this. And in a Pendlay row, your goal is to rise as explosively as possible and then row from there and back down to the ground. We're up to the knee, row from there, back down to the ground. And that should be your rhythm. So you're practicing your control and your lat tightness off the ground to your knee and then carrying that through with a row. If you go into a deadlift position, just try to row from there, you're gonna be so much weaker compared to where your deadlift is at. For reference, I did my sets at 900. I'm now gonna do my working Pendlay rows at, what do we got? We got about 490. So if you're not somewhere in the 50% of 1 rep max range for deadlifts when you're doing Pendlay rows, you're probably being too strict and going too light. This is a movement that should not be done strict, quote unquote. If we wanted that, we would just prescribe you barbell rows. Oh. All right, pump time. I 100% need to be working with straight bar. I'll go here. Because as I get stronger and as I get bigger, I find that my supination really takes a toll. And so when I'm over under the axle, I want to be able to get this hand turned all the way to pull a bit better, because right now my pinky and ring finger like to come off. So I'm just pulling with these 2 fingers, which is not the most powerful way to do it. So forcing a little bit of supination and see if we can get that elbow working a little bit better. By 12. I'm always cautious how intense to go on bicep stuff for a couple of reasons. One, useful for tendons, for your biceps to be nice and strong. But at a certain stage, like a front rack becomes really hard if your biceps get too big. And I've actually found this year harder than last to be able to front rack effectively, which is just like a mechanical thing. Your forearm hits your bicep and how much further down can you go? And I don't want to put undue stress on my tendons for when I have to back up and do something in the next couple of days. So it's very much a little bit of a yin and a yang.
You have a lot more energy even after the deadlift session. Do you think that's because of the ketones?
It could be. It could be. Like it's a big change that I've made as a religious change before every workout. And yeah, normally after a heavy deadlift, like my brain is fried. I have a hard time keeping my eyes open, but the clarity just feels really good. And placebo's a thing. Placebo's a very real thing, and you can't overestimate how much that can play a role. But I've been doing it for a few weeks now, and usually after a few weeks, the placebo starts to wear off, and it reigns pretty true how you're feeling. So, I mean, I definitely think it's worth a shot for anyone out there who feels like either after a long work day or after a bunch of sets of something, you just can't feel like you get a full push into your workout. Like I just go back to people who overtrained were able to sustain 15% more than people who took a placebo. 15% is massive. And so to me, that just says it's protective of your nervous system, which makes a lot of sense, given that this is the substrate that your brain wants to use for energy. If your brain is starved of energy, going to be very hard. Now, another thing on that, if your brain is using ketones for energy and not glucose, then you're much less susceptible to training, having the glucose sucked out of your blood and your brain being starved for energy, which is when you're gonna take a huge hit in energy focus, a huge bump up in fatigue. And so logically and physiologically, I can totally get there on how this makes a big difference. Remember, eccentrics always gonna be best for tendon health. So I try to do at least half of my bicep work focusing as much on the eccentric as the concentric. That is that, guys. Ketones been a big theme today. We put those in the description. As always, lift heavy, be kind. Hopefully you got something from that. Couple of deadlift tips, couple of warm-up tips, couple of nutrition tips. That's what I'm here for. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you like this stuff. Leave a comment, even if it's just a moose dropping, to support the channel, support the growth. Free to you guys, super helpful to us. Lift heavy, be kind. We'll catch you in the next video.